Hello and welcome to this edition of Energy Independence Magazine. I'm your host, Sean Reynolds. Today I'm joined by Jon Harrison, the former mayor and current city councilman of Redlands, California. In recent years, Redlands has developed an economic sustainability network plan which includes a vital environmental and alternative energy use component. They are also, along with several other California cities, participating in the California Green Community Challenge. Welcome, Councilman Harrison.
Thanks, nice to be here.
Could you give us a little history on the sustainability plan?
Sure, it really came out of the movement back in 2007, 2008. I attended the U.S. Conference of Mayors meetings on sustainability, and through that put together a committee of Redlands residents, all experts in different fields, to develop a plan that would fit our specific needs and our specific interests in sustainability. We used the best practices guide from the Institute for Local Government, which is an arm of the League of California Cities, to really give us a structure to that plan. Have 10 different categories, among which are energy efficiency, renewable energy, land use, transportation, and many, many more. And now we're using that plan to guide activities, all on a voluntary basis, for the community to try to reduce our use of energy in Redlands.
I understand it does have different components than just energy efficiency and energy use. One of them that sounds interesting is this emerald necklace that Redlands has developed. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
The emerald necklace is a concept that's been around in Redlands really for 20 years or more. It's really part of the land use aspect of our sustainability plan. And while its basic focus is on the preservation of natural lands around the community to create the emerald necklace, also connected by trails, it's really actually a very important part of today's approach to economic development. What we're finding is the transition of how people find jobs is, rather than going somewhere looking for a job, their first step is to find a community in which they want to live that offers the kind of amenities that they're seeking, and then they'll look for a job in that location. So as cities compete to attract good employees, they want to have an environment that is inviting for people to live, to bring their families. That's why we made that a big part of our sustainability plan, to make sure we have those kind of resources, among others, that are going to attract the workers of this century.
You're a part of the California Green Community Challenge with several of the other cities in Southern California. Could you explain a little of that?
Yeah, the Community Challenge really came out of a interest by Edison to promote sustainable activities throughout cities in Southern California. Edison benefits by not having to build more big power plants, so if they can get cities involved in this process, it can save them over time the cost of that investment. What the challenge is really about is really a little competition between cities. Who can do the most to make their city more sustainable, more energy efficient?
Can you give me an example of something that you are advancing in that during that challenge?
Sure. One of the things we've done just recently was we've did an overall master plan for LED light-emitting diode street lights for the entire city. And we did an analysis to make sure it was going to pay off first. And then we have now implemented our first phase in our downtown. Several hundred of our lights, we switched them to LED devices, and we're seeing that it's going to save about 30% on our electric bill. So over a few years, I think it's 7 years, we will save enough money to put in additional phases and eventually have entirely paid for the upgrade of our system through the energy savings that we achieve.
What's happening in Redlands with the PV installation?
PV or photovoltaics have really been actually a very strong part of our overall energy savings programs in Redlands. When we started our sustainability plan back in 2009, we had just achieved 1 megawatt of solar installation. In the next year and a half, 2 years, we're now up to almost 3 megawatts. So we've tripled our amount of PV in the last couple of years. And a recent study put out showed that we, in terms of communities throughout California, we're ranked 87th out of about 600 in terms of the level of the amount of megawatt installation in the community. One of the things that's driving that for us is we have many of these large industrial warehouses, and several of them, for example, Prologis has a program of putting solar on their roof. So that gives us some very large installations in town. But we've also are seeing now have about 300 installations in town, residential, commercial, and industrial. So we really see that being a big part of how we're contributing to reducing the demand for fossil fuel-based energies.
And are you seeing a lot of jobs created by this? Are you seeing a lot of high-paying jobs?
It takes 20 or 30 people, I believe, on an installation of that large size. And the other place that we're starting to push is energy efficiency type improvements to housing.
John, getting back to a question I had before about the obstacles that are presented to a green environment, which is a forward-thinking strategy that may not pay off so much in the near term, but does take a little bit while to proceed. What are the obstacles from other industries that you're seeing?
At a state level, we're constantly being, our programs like AB 32 and SB 375, the land use issue, are constantly being challenged from the petroleum industry in terms of it's just too hard to do. But California and certainly Redlands is totally on board with moving forward with these kinds of programs because our green jobs have been constantly growing. This year they grew at about 8%, whereas the jobs in general in California's economy only grew 1%. Then one of the incentives that local government absolutely has to do is figure out how they can change their regulating and permitting processes to not be in the way. That's been a problem with solar PV in the past. I think that's gotten out of the way in many communities. It only takes less than a day now in Redlands. Some places it used to take weeks to get a solar PV permit. The same is going to be true of charging stations. They're a new technology. City inspectors haven't dealt with them before. So how are they going to learn quickly how to evaluate those drawings that are received in the office and then inspect them in the field to make sure they're done correctly?
Again, we go back to those good paying jobs.
Exactly.
With the training for inspectors and things like this.
Yeah, not only the inspectors for the city, but the installers for this kind of equipment. They need some real skills. They need to understand the dangers of electricity. These solar these charging stations are all 220. They're very high voltage. If you don't do it right and you don't set it up so that the customer is comfortable that he's going to be able to use it carefully and correctly with their vehicle, you can create some real problems. So training, absolutely critical for those doing the installations.
With regards to that, how important is it for a city to install these charging stations? And do you think that the government should take a role in assisting with some of those?
Yeah, I really think it is quite important, and it's for a couple of reasons. The infrastructure, these charging stations for electrical vehicles, is often brought up as the current big stumbling block to successfully growing our electrical vehicle fleet. So governments, and whether that's cities or counties or states, need to push that forward. And they need to work with the local community businesses as well. Certainly there need to be incentives for them to participate. Most of these kind of changes come about through guidelines and regulations that come from the state. So I do believe that that is going to be helpful. And it will make it possible for a large employer to attract those employees, again, part of their quality of life, that look to that kind of forward-thinking, sustainable business as a place, that's where I want to work, or that's where I want to shop in the case of a shopping center. So helping educate these shopping centers and businesses about the advantages it can have to attracting employees, giving them some financial incentive to perhaps underwrite the initial cost, and having guidelines that make sure they are part of that essential infrastructure that right now is insufficient in California. The two places people are going to charge are at home and either at where they work or where they shop. So putting these facilities at the businesses and at the shopping centers puts a charging possibility at this other end, at both ends of your trip.
Thank you, Councilman, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
The mission, vision, and core values of the Redlands Sustainability Network Plan is to have a diverse group of community members determined to make sustainability a potent force through education and responsible action within the city of Redlands and beyond. Redlands hopes to become a unique model of sustainability. Their view on sustainability is an overarching and vitally necessary centerpiece of their collective views, where smart environmental practices, economic viability, social justice and health, and historic preservation are strongly valued. I'm Sean Reynolds, and I want to thank you for watching this edition of Energy Independence Magazine.